Restart it.
Great. The Chancellor and Provost for making the time to speak with us and their continued leadership during these troubled times. Some ground rules. We had 28 submitted questions, which broke down into 8 main categories. All video, audio, and chat has been muted. Please use the question and answer feature to ask questions. We've also enabled the vote feature, so you can actually vote by clicking on the thumbs up button by a question to move it up to the top of the queue. We'll start with opening remarks, spend the first half of the town hall answering previously submitted questions with my co-host Andrea Hunter, Kisha Carmichael, and Adam Horton. So without further ado, let's begin with opening remarks. Chancellor Gilliam.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate it. I'll try to be brief because the Provost and I need to leave for a system call, and the Faculty Senate needs to get to its business. A few things. COVID-19 and the CARES Act. As you have probably read, we expect to receive about 18.6 million. Half of it, 9.3, must be used for student emergency, financial aid, and grants. It can be used for food, housing, course materials, technology, healthcare or childcare, and other matters. The remainder, the other 9.3, will help to partially offset COVID-related losses of expenses and revenues in excess of $22 million. Again, the other half of the 18.6, 9.3, will help to offset losses associated with more than $22 million in expenses and revenues. And just for your information, we're working on guidelines for the student disbursements, and we'll try to get ourselves ready for when the money starts to show up. Here more locally, on Monday, I spoke to all of the Guilford County delegation to make UNCG's case. The legislature will go into session here toward the end of the month, and we hope that our advocacy will pay off in terms of us being able to access emergency funding. The system has requested $45 million. We're very hopeful that the legislature will see fit to provide more funding, but we will have to wait and see. We also are aware that universities and colleges are not eligible for the second wave of federal stimulus money. Now, there's still good news. We have started to fill several positions. Since I last spoke to you, we have hired Bob Shea from Elon as our new Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration. I want to thank Charlie Leffler. Bob starts May 1, and he and Charlie have been in constant contact to work through a smooth transition, but I do want to acknowledge and recognize Charlie's great contributions to this university as the interim. His depth of knowledge of budget matters in North Carolina has been essential for us to navigate our way through this, and I'm sure we will miss him, but I don't know how much he will miss us. I think he's ready to get on with his retirement. We have also hired Tina McIntyre as a new Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Management. She starts June 1st, but she's also working in the transition. Tina's from UNC Charlotte and has been credited with being instrumental to the significant enrollment growth at Charlotte over the last decade. Finally, we've been able to identify a replacement for Nell Pines as a new Associate Provost for International Programs. Maria Anastasio from App State will succeed Nell, and we certainly appreciate the long and dedicated and brilliant service that Nell has provided for the university and for international programs over the years. We have been conducting finalist interviews for the provost position. We have 2 more campus visits scheduled. One, I think, starts tomorrow, and it'll be Thursday and Friday, and then one next week. We will then be in a position to make some decisions. We certainly appreciate your involvement and your feedback in terms of assessing the candidates. The committee led by Andrea Hunter, who's done a really great job, will make their assessment of the candidates, but many of you will have seen them in the forums, and I appreciate your input. We think it's a strong field, and we'll have some answers soon. We're in the very final stages of hiring a new director for the Weatherspoon Art Museum. We're hopeful, but we'll see how it plays out, but we are very close to finishing that, as we are the registrar search. So we've made significant progress on filling key positions at the university, and will hopefully in the next couple of weeks round out the team. And then finally, we are launching a redesign of our website. It's been ITS and University Communications. And as we've known during this pandemic, people would see the website as a source of reliable information. They're just starting to get this off the ground, and they will be looking for input from you all, from the faculty and staff, that will help us substantially improve how we connect, how we tell our story, how we work together online, and how we function across many operations of the university. So with that, Anthony, I will stop with my remarks and turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Gilliam. I believe we have Provost Dunn with us.
It will not let me unmute.
Yeah, there, you're unmuted.
All
Yep,
right.
we have you now.
It says someone else is controlling my mute and my video. So I'm unmuted, but I can't control the video, nor did I control mute. Someone else did.
Well, if it's okay with you, Dana, would you like to just provide some opening remarks? We can hear you.
Why don't we pass on my opening remarks? I just got in, and I know I've taken too much time trying to do this. So why don't you go ahead and move forward with your questions?
Okay, sure. So our first question is for either or both of you. Do you have a sense yet of when campus will reopen, and how about the fall, and whether classes will be online only?
Well, Dana, do you want to take a guess at that? We don't know is the answer. The system office has asked us to plan around a variety of scenarios. That is, do we go back? So one, are we back in face-to-face? And if we are, what are the guidelines for that? And what restrictions would we put on campus activities? Two, what if we go back and have online in the fall, and then go face-to-face in January? And three, some hybrid model where either parts of the campus are open or we possibly push the start back a few weeks. We don't know. We're working closely with the system office to figure out the safest and best way to conduct the fall semester. We know that there is vigorous national debate about this. Some schools are moving towards opening, others towards staying closed and online. We're meeting with President Roper at 4 o'clock. I'm just looking at a chat that's asking who's ever controlling this to release the agenda on the screen. So we don't know. We're planning for a number of contingencies, but we just don't know. Dana, do you want to either say more about it, what we're planning, or how we're going to move forward?
Sure. I would like to say just a couple of things. Given the uncertainty that may remain for some time, I think that all faculty are well advised to do their own contingency planning and be prepared to enter the fall semester either online or face-to-face. Even if we begin successfully face-to-face, and we're all hopeful that we will, we have no assurance that we will be able to complete the semester face-to-face. So I believe the best approach is to be ready whatever circumstances unfold. We are mounting various forms of faculty development support this summer to assist our faculty in a higher state of readiness for the conversion. We had to do this so abruptly in the spring, and everyone worked admirably, but with time over the summer, we believe that we can be better prepared should we find ourselves in such a position.
Okay, thank you very much. Kisha, go ahead.
Anthony, can I just add one thing? I don't know if I said it. Sorry, Kisha. We have been talking with the system office among the chancellors about what a go, no-go date would be. That is to say, a decision date at which we either go online or go face-to-face or a hybrid. While not formal yet, the date of July 1 seems to be when people think is the most people think is doable. Obviously, the earlier the better, but it could be July 1st, it could be July 15th, or it could be in June sometime, but July 1st is roughly a go, no-go date, and I think that's important. I want to just lift up Dana's point that people should just be prepared either way.
Thank you, Frank.
Sorry.
Oh, no, not at all. We actually had a follow-up question about May 1st. So obviously there's a lot of discussion about opening possibly early. Is that an option, or what are the, I guess, factors or variables involved?
Well, the main one is that the governor has a stay-at-home order, and we'll find out. I think did he say something this afternoon? I haven't seen, but I know he's supposed to say something shortly about whether or not he is going to extend the stay-at-home order. As you know, there's mounting political pressure to open things back up. I don't know if anybody has any further intel about that, but obviously we can't open May 1 if he extends the stay-at-home order.
Great, thank you very much. Kisha, go ahead.
Hi. Many of our students have limited access to the internet and computers. We have seen many struggle to complete assignments this semester on their cell phones. If we have to teach online again in the fall, how will the university ensure equal access to educational resources? Is the system looking at UNCG students independently, given that most grad students live off campus? And are the classes of smaller sizes? Is it possible that UNCG students might not come back to campus, but graduate students might?
Well, to the last part of your question, it is possible that there could be some hybrid. We just don't know. If I suspect that decisions like that will be made by the system office to determine the amount of delegated authority that the campuses will have to make decisions like that. We're getting closer to some decisions on that, but as of now, we don't know yet. So there's been a proposal. Could you allow graduate students who live off campus back? And could you even bring freshmen in and put them in residence halls that have single bathrooms? I mean, have private bathrooms and limit the class size. We just don't know. To the point of internet access, ITS did a pretty good job of getting students who requested access. They did a lot of troubleshooting. It seemed that part of the problem, a significant part of the problem, was less that people had no access, but that they were just having a lot of trouble getting online, being able to access their classes. We could only solve the problems, obviously, we knew about. And I think that if we look to online in the fall, that we will be much better prepared. Remember, we had 5 or 6 days to do this. It's actually a great testament to the diligence and creativity of the faculty and staff that 99% of our courses got up online. So I think now that we will have some time to plan, we'll think of, so there's, for example, hotspots that can be provided to students. But I think a lot of the problem is troubleshooting. Sometimes they have slow internet. Sometimes they're just not familiar with navigating. And so ITS did a lot of troubleshooting over the initial period in particular. Dana, do you have any sense of what we're doing on access for the summer?
We have a little more time to plan, and we have some equipment available that we can easily make available to students. That should enhance access somewhat. Our ability to control the internet access situation is somewhat more limited, so it will be a continuation of the efforts that ITS mounted for the spring disruption. There has also been some discussion about whether or not, if we are able to lift the stay at home, we could provide some appropriately socially distanced spaces on campus for students to come and access the internet.
Thank you, Dana. I think we have your video available now too, if you want to give that a try. Ah, perfect.
There you are.
There you are. Andrea, go ahead.
With all students being coded as online in the summer, this means students will be required to purchase a gym membership because they will not be paying the student activity fee like they would if they were coded for online classes. How can we support both students and staff in this communication? Is there another way we can go about this without charging students for something out of their control?
David, I mean, I don't know that I quite understand the question. Given if it's online, they wouldn't pay the activity fee, right? That's right, Dana? Or Charlie?
Correct. They would not pay the activity fee if it's online,
Right.
but the assumption is that they also would not have access. But really, there would be no additional charge because if we're face-to-face, they will be paying a fee for access. So providing that we are able to open the facility and are online, the charge that they would pay to access the facility could be comparable to what they would have paid in a face-to-face environment.
And that's assuming we could even open the facility.
Assuming we could open the
And if we
facility.
don't open the
Yes.
facility, they would have that cost savings. And if they wanted a gym membership, they could purchase short term.
The reality for summer is that students will be receiving a lot of support services for which they are not paying, because they are not paying any of the student activities related fees in the summer, yet we are still providing supports. Even some of the student health and counseling services are still being provided to students. So essentially they are being provided at no cost this summer because of the transition.
Thank you very much. Adam?
All right, our next question is a topic that comes up quite frequently here at town halls. It is having to do with parking. Will faculty and staff receive a refund or future rebate for parking due to the stay-at-home order? I think some people have been told by parking that they're not issuing refunds this time and they're not offering the ability to cancel parking.
Well, Adam, of course you would bring up parking. I'm going to hold it against you for the rest of your career. So here's where we're headed with parking. First of all, people, you know, our policy had been you could get a refund up to March 31st. So that's one. But now we're allowing faculty and staff who are not going to use their parking permit and like to cancel their payroll deduction, they can return their parking permit. You can drop it off to the parking office or they can mail it in. Faculty and staff who return their permits by May 8th will have their payroll deduction for parking that was withheld in April credited back. However, if the stay-at-home order is listed and you turn in your parking pass and you have to come to campus, then you have to repurchase a parking pass. Does that answer your question?
I think so. That answers it for me. Hopefully it answered for the other folks who submitted that question as well. Thank you.
Okay, a question from the gallery. Let's see here. The first question, are school searches, new lines, and new hires still going forward?
Shall I respond to that, Chancellor Gilliam?
Yes, ma'am.
They are going forward selectively. As you may recall, we had a permanent funding cut due to student credit hour reduction year over year. And as a result of that cut, some fraction of the new lines were pulled back. Others will go forward. We worked with the academic units to make strategic decisions about where the lines were most critical in terms of things like new program launches and or growing enrollment. So it is a fraction of the lines that have been pulled back. The others are going forward. I think this question may have also emerged potentially because you've heard about the hiring pause that was instituted by UNC system. It's important to note this is a pause and not a freeze. And we can justify exceptions to the pause in terms of being able to carry out our mission. Clearly being able to deliver instruction with faculty is critical, and we can make those exceptions in cases where we have adequate funding.
Great, thank you. Keisha, if you want from the gallery, a question in the chat.
Is there any plan for the Chancellor to reach out to students regarding the relief package options? There are students who seem to not know much, if anything, about it.
Well, two or three things, and I don't know if Andrew's you can speak to it as well. We're still trying to develop guidelines, we are developing guidelines for how the half of the CARES Act funds will be used on campus. Provost Dunn and Mr. Leffler have come forward with a proposal on how to distribute that money. Dana, I don't have that memo right in front of me. I know you had the 4 categories that we thought about.
We have several categories that include of rescue funds that would be paid directly to students, but students could use to pay off debt that inhibits their registration. We have a real emphasis on meeting unmet need in the proposal. Many of our students who do receive Pell funds still have a substantial amount of unmet need, and we know that that is likely to be particularly acute at this challenging time. I think it's important to note that one of the reasons the Chancellor hasn't communicated more directly yet is that the guidance is still unfolding with respect to what's allowable on the CARE Act. We get new guidance every day. In fact, I believe as we're speaking here, we have some folks on a webinar that is further information about what is and what is not allowable. One of the questions we have is whether or not entering students are eligible for the funds. We just learned as of late yesterday that certain students are not eligible, specifically international students. So this is something that is very much unfolding and evolving.
Thank you, Dana. Andrea?
Recently, UNCG has moved towards more systematic measures to authorize or certify faculty to teach fully online. We require current face-to-face courses to undergo curriculum committee approval if they are to be approved for online delivery. To what degree will either or both of these policies be altered, suspended, or maintained for fall courses? If face-to-face classes go online in the fall, will campus students be charged reduced rates of tuition and fees?
I'll be happy to respond to that. First, if we are required to go online for the fall, it's important to note that it will likely be a system decision and not a campus decision. And we won't have the latitude to respect prior policies and processes in all cases, such as curriculum committee approval for a course to go online. So that will be suspended in this emergency environment. With respect to the credentialing for faculty to teach online, we are very hopeful that we can, through the summer efforts, credential all faculty to be ready to teach online. I issued a communication just a few days ago about a development opportunity this summer that can reach up to 150 faculty, and then a list of alternatives that will also assist faculty in getting certified. I strongly urge that everyone engage with these efforts this summer, because we know that the ability to teach effectively online requires that one have this form of support. Did I answer all parts of that question, or was there one remaining? Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Adam, feel free to ask a pre-prepared question.
Okay, there's a question I think that was raised several times in our questions that we received beforehand, and it has to do about furlough. Hasn't been a decision, obviously, with the UNC system or for our campus, but should there be any concern about this possibly happening? And I think especially part of this question comes from the faculty perspective as well, for any untenured or tenure track faculty who have employment stability before they're scheduled to go up for tenure. Is it possible that any untenured or tenure track lines would be cut? And if so, who would make that decision and how?
Let me take it more globally, and then Dana, you might want to drill down on it a bit. So far, the word furlough, at least semi-publicly, hasn't come out from the system office yet. It's why one of the reasons why they've encouraged the hiring pause is to be able to reclaim some of the lapsed salary money so that we don't have to do things like furlough people. We also will see if we get some relief from the CARES Act money. But those are our first attempts to stave off furloughing people. It's our preference not to if we don't have to. but it may, we don't know how sustainable it will be long-term to continue to use lap salaries, for example, to continue to make up the loss in revenue. So Dana, do you want to drill down any more on that?
I would just emphasize that our ability to maintain enrollment going forward, whether face-to-face or online, is likely to be the key determinant of whether we're able to retain all our positions. So I emphasize that here, of course, because I want everyone to, through their advising opportunities and contacts with students, to encourage them to continue their education. Right now, there are no plans, as Chancellor Gilliam said. As the academic year unfolds, if we can maintain a healthy enrollment, we should be well situated. In the event that enrollment declines, then when we have the next measuring period in terms of our state funding, that is when such issues would be entertained, I believe.
I would just add to that, that one, I agree with Dana. And we're very optimistic about Tina McIntyre, the new Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Management. She's already started to get to work and point out some things that we might do to improve our enrollment picture. I don't know if it's probably too late maybe for the fall, but hopefully going forward, we'll be able to remedy, as Dana said, remedy some of that by growing the enrollment. I think enrollment growth is in many ways the key for us. We've been on a good trajectory the last 5 years. We hope this is more of a blip than anything else. And I just received memos today from the folks there. They are working like crazy to try to get students to campus. So we'll do that. We'll try to continue to be very careful about how we use lapse positions and try to do all we can to stave off having to get to a discussion of furloughs. But I must say, you know, I don't know about you, Dana, on the provost calls, but I've not heard the word mentioned on the chancellor's calls yet.
No, there's been no discussion in the chief academic officer's calls at this point. And I do believe that one of the reasons system decided early on to move online was to do everything possible to maintain educational continuity so we don't lose students and don't lose the critical funding to maintain our personnel.
Thanks to you both. The next question is it possible to compensate faculty for the significant extra time involved in reworking and transitioning courses to online with a particular focus on work over the summer in case it's needed for the fall?
Provost Khan?
Oh, I'm sorry, Chancellor, please.
No, I was saying this one's all yours.
Okay. The communication issued 2 days ago about the summer development opportunity entailed very modest compensation for faculty, $1,500 for faculty who apply and are selected to participate in the program. That at this point is the only plan we have for providing funding for faculty to do this work. It is a very challenging time to provide additional resources. I remind everyone that we had an enrollment decline which led to a modest permanent budget cut, and we're doing everything we can imagine to avoid such going forward. So this requirement to be ready to teach in both ways, we recognize is additional work in some respects, but it is something that will help us maintain the stability of the institution. For context, however, I feel a bit compelled to point out that if one looks around the nation at other universities, large state universities in large systems, the news on some of those campuses is not nearly as positive as what we have here today. University of Arizona, for instance, has a tiered arrangement of percentage salary cuts up to 20%. That includes faculty and staff, and this is throughout the campus. I understand the Wisconsin system is doing something similar. So I think it's important to realize that we're quite fortunate here, and while we are having to ask, in some sense, more of faculty to be ready to teach both ways, on some level, we should be pleased that we're able to go forward without reductions in either salary or reductions in force.
Great, thank you very much, Dana. Kisha, I'll go ahead and ask we'll go ahead and ask the budget question. The one,
Okay. Okay. Several college presidents around the country have already announced that they will take a pay cut, and the number of them is growing daily. What plans does UNCG have for top-level administrators to take pay cuts as part of a team effort to minimize the impact of budget cuts?
Well, I think that if, at least I'll speak for myself, that if we institute budget cuts of the sort Dana talked about at Wisconsin or I forget the other state you mentioned.
Arizona.
Then the senior staff would be subject to those cuts as well. Cutting them somewhat arbitrarily, however, is not going to get us out of the hole, the budget gap we need to fill. So if they institute reductions, everybody will have to take them. That's another thing that has not been brought up, but Dana, I assume you've not heard anything different.
No, I've not heard any discussion at this point. And again, I think there's great hope that if we can maintain continuity and enrollment, that we will not have to take those steps.
Yeah.
thank you very much. Andrea?
When do you anticipate having a relatively accurate enrollment projection to estimate potential budget cuts for next year if enrollment and student credit hours are low?
Well, go ahead, Dana.
I laugh when I'm asked that question because I'm very tempted to respond about a week into the semester, because that's when our enrollment truly crystallizes in terms of an official number around census date. We've been having discussions this week trying to look to the fall semester and predict where we will land, but because there are so many new circumstances, it is very, very challenging to look into the crystal ball with any degree of accuracy. There are pressures that are downward tied to things like international enrollment in particular. There are some positive indicators. Our SOAR orientation registrations are actually up year over year. So, candidly, we don't know what to make of all this, and we don't think we are going to be able to predict with great accuracy where we will land in the fall, because this is an entirely novel situation. But I would ask you keep in mind that it's not just fall enrollment, it's a series of 3 semesters enrollment that will actually determine our funding level. So we have multiple opportunities to capture the same enrollment.
I'm just reading something we just got a report from the folks at admissions. Normally after the June, I think it is, SOAR, they start to get some idea, but now because it's had to go virtual, we're not sure what will happen. We're not sure whether getting some of the money out from the stimulus package over the summer will do something. And fundamentally, we're not sure what the post-COVID world will look like. Will vulnerable students, like many of ours are, have to stay home and work and help their families? Or conversely, will there be no jobs for them to work, and will school be a refuge, particularly if they can get financial aid? And I think, as with everything with COVID and any sort of post-COVID world, it seems to change week to week. So I think it's very difficult to predict where we'll be in the fall. I'm just now looking at, I don't know, Dana, we just got an email just now from our new VC of enrollment with her analysis. I haven't had a chance to read through it.
And that's based on the meeting we had yesterday where we looked at the various factors I referred to, pushes and pulls in different directions. And I've not yet seen the communication, so I'll be interested to see it. But
yeah.
the environment is much more uncertain. So I think our degree of confidence in any prediction we make is going to be much less than in the past. But the Chancellor made a really good point about the state of the economy and opportunities to invest in oneself when jobs are not available. We are working on messaging and formal marketing and communication strategies that try to help our students understand that in summer, for instance, when one cannot work, cannot travel for vacations, there's no better investment than taking a few classes. So we're hopeful that these messages will have some late-breaking impact on our summer enrollment. Right now, summer enrollment is tracking down. Last measurement was a few days ago, and we were down about 8% on student credit hours. But we're hopeful that an action that we're putting in place starting next week to reach out to all the students who withdrew this semester and offer them detailed plans about how they can recover lost progress in the summer will move the needle sharply on summer enrollment over the coming weeks.
So I just say to bottom line it, if you haven't heard the message, we are turning laser-like focus to enrollment and enrollment management. And I understand it's a way for us to get ourselves back on the right track. And so they're doing a lot of creative stuff. The email that I just received was about how we do our packages, when we do our packages, how do we repackage. I mean, so we're thinking, I think very hard about how we do that to try to stave off any more loss in appropriations.
Thank you very much. So many of you are not aware of all of the instant messaging going on in terms of managing the questions. So Adam, in terms of time, I would rather you go ahead and ask the staff question because we are running out of time. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah, this is just another follow-up from the question about furloughs, which I think you explained very, very well. Obviously, that's not been part of the discussion yet. I think there is some concern, however, for those staff, especially who have positions where they're not able to telework, or maybe even those who are on administrative leave, and sort of fear of those positions being the first ones, if a furlough was enacted, that they would be the ones affected most directly by that.
I mean, I think those are valid concerns. Our goal is to not get there. Right? And then we'll see.
The only other thing that I might offer that is somewhat related is the fact that there are some areas where employees are not able to do their current work, but where they can help in other areas of high demand. The disruption in the current circumstance has created many needs in certain areas of staffing, like the registrar's office, because of the need to convert students and the like. In other areas, like the international office, where we have to limit or curtail study abroad, we will reach a point at some time where there's not work for individuals to do. So we've been having discussions about how we can cross-train and work across areas to keep everybody busy and get the much needed work done during this time of disruption.
Great, thank you. The next question is looking at tenure stream faculty who have startup packages. What are your thoughts around startup funds being utilized relative to the tenure clock opt-out policy for additional year? For instance, money is promised for year 2 will be held for actual year 2 and not applied to travel for 2021.
we need to be maximally flexible, recognizing that some of the intended expenditures simply won't be able to occur in timeframes. So while it is a challenge for the university because we have carry forward limits on our budget, I think that the magnitude of the expenses here will not be such that we won't be able to work on a case-by-case basis to accommodate the faculty members' needs. The first thing to do is anticipate any changes that are needed and talk first with your department chair. Your department chair can work with the dean, and if needed, the Office of Research in my office to make this all work in a way that continues to support research in the manner intended.
Great. Andrea?
Given the stress and significant disruption associated with COVID-19, could we relax research expectations for the following year?
Dana?
As you all know, we took a significant step this cycle, and I want to thank again the University Tenure and Promotion Committee and the Faculty Senate for helping us work through this. So we put in place an opt-out policy, which essentially automatically extended everyone's tenure clock 1 full year. That's a significant step. Should the disruption continue at an interval that goes beyond that, I think it less likely that we'll take another across-the-board measure, but more likely that issues will have to be handled on a case-by-case basis, where individuals' research trajectories are evaluated with respect to the work that they do. Many of our faculty are able to continue their work in this environment. In fact, I've had some faculty tell me they actually have more time because of the changes, they're not commuting, etc. I'm not in any way downplaying the impact of the disruption. I'm just saying if it continues for a prolonged period, it will impact faculty variably. And I think the next step would be to re-engage our university tenure and promotion policy and our faculty senate in a discussion about what a new program might look like. I think it might look somewhat different from what we put in place at this time.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. So Yisha, go ahead.
Okay. Where did it go?
Sorry,
What
that's
is
my
the, okay, what is the likelihood of furloughs for staff, especially those currently paid through administrative leave, jobs not able to telework? Is there a date by which decisions on those furloughs would be made?
I'm sorry, we actually asked that question.
Ask that one, right?
Yeah,
I
sorry,
thought we did.
Yeah.
Where did it go?
And this is my fault that she's looking for the question because I accidentally skipped over to Andrea.
Well, Anthony, go ahead and read that question since you know where it is, and I'm. Hold on.
I'm looking for a final question. So Brad, if the campus does reopen, what steps will be taken to reorganize workspaces so staff can continue to social distance while at work? Many state health officials are recommending the continuation of this practice. They're encouraging employers to consider this and formulate plans to reopen.
Well, we certainly will follow guidelines that'll be issued if we do, I'm sure, by the system office. And I'm just looking at an email from another one. They're just sort of coming in fast and furious about if we do open, how can we continue mitigation strategies in offices and classrooms and dining halls, in the residence halls. And the issue will be how, in fact, we can keep our campus community safe, or the safest it possibly can be if we're asked to reopen. The fact of the matter is that we're going to have serious cleaning. So if you read Rich Daniel from Purdue has a letter to his community, I think it's really worth sharing with people. that Purdue intends to open in the fall. And there's a series of things that they intend to do, from regular and more frequent cleaning of facilities to social distancing to requiring people to wear masks. They actually believe they're going to be able to test everybody. I don't know how that's going to work there. They do. They have an academic medical center, but it'd be tough in Guilford County. We don't have the capacity for testing yet. So we would hope that the system gives us guidance and the resources to test and trace. And so if you read the Mitch Daniels piece, he talks at Purdue, he talks about their strategy of testing, contact, and tracing. And again, this is what you would want to do. That's what the country should be doing. But the state would certainly have to, our student health center, our campus health center is certainly not equipped at this point to handle that. And so we'd have to find support for being able to handle that kind of load.
Great, thank you. And one final question. Yes, we'll try to slip it in because it was voted heavily. It was a popular question. If the governor does not extend the stay-at-home order, will we plan to reopen campus immediately, or what is the timeline, or how will that decision be made?
The honest answer is we don't know yet. As I say, we have a call here at 4 o'clock with President Roper. We expect that he will start to talk about some potential guidelines if their move is towards reopening. I assume whatever happens, it will be phased, but I would say it a different way. I would be surprised if it's not phased. I don't believe this is a light switch kind of timeline where you just flip the switch and all of a sudden everybody's back on campus and everything's back to normal. Look, things are going to be different in the post-COVID world. They just are. And just to say, we've become accustomed to the TSA at airports and taking off our belts and shoes and coats and sweaters. I think you're going to find similar kinds of things around mitigating effects until there's a vaccine, and we're looking at probably a year down the road there. So phased in, if we do start it, probably rely on system guidelines, and it'll depend on whether or not campuses are given the resources to do the apartment testing, contact, and tracing.
Great, thank you so much. So a couple of minutes for closing remarks.
Well, Dana, since you didn't get to start out, I'll let you have this one.
Thank you very much. Once again, I would like to thank everyone for their diligence and their hard work navigating in an environment of challenge and uncertainty. We know that you have your personal difficulties, and then we have this work disruption. I think it is important that even in the midst of this, we keep a few things in mind to sustain ourselves as we move through it. The first is this will be temporary. This will not be an ongoing situation. We don't yet know the duration, but we will navigate through this to the other side, having learned a lot. And if we work together collaboratively, I'm confident we can get through this without significant damage to the institution, and we'll be able to carry out our mission. The second thing I think is important to keep in mind is how privileged we are to work in an environment such as a university that carries out such important work. You know, we are deemed essential. That is our mission of providing education. I admire the commitment of everyone who helps us do it. I understand the concerns and the questions, and I wish we could give better answers, but to try to do so would mean looking into a crystal ball that was really murky, and our answers would not have much meaning. I do think you should know that as soon as information is available, the university is very, very committed to sharing it with you. The Chancellor has activated and enhanced all communication channels and frequently passes information on just as soon as it is made available to him. So know that we will continue to share with you even over the summer. If there's concern that as we move into the less active summer period, we will go silent or go dark, that is not the case, because as we've talked about throughout this hour, there's a lot of important work to be done this summer, and some of it will continue to be contingency planning. So we'll be right there with you sharing information.
I just want to lift up what Dana said. One, I really appreciate the hard work and dedication of the faculty and staff. It's no small thing to pivot like we did as an entire institution and do it in a seamless way. As I've written, I know this is taking a toll on people. One concern I do have that hasn't been mentioned is about people's mental health. So I urge everyone to particularly take care of themselves and their families. You need to find ways to relieve some of this anxiety and stress, whether it's taking walks or exercising or cooking together or whatever it is. But I think you have to recognize that this is taking a mental toll on everyone. Secondly, we're committed. We're looking at every scenario. We're in it for the long haul. Dana's dead right, and I wrote, I think, last week, there will be a post-COVID world. Things will, it's not, the university's been here 126 years. It'll be here. And will there be some reforms in higher ed? Probably, but I'm confident, as Dana is, that we'll come out the other side. We'll have learned a lot about ourselves, and we'll continue to offer high quality education to as many students as we can. So thank you to the to the staff and academic senates, or faculty, so I say academic senates, faculty senates for organizing this. I hope it's been helpful for folks.
Very much so, and thank you so much, Frank, Dana, for your leadership. We appreciate you making the time to address the community once again. I also want to thank all faculty and staff for your resilience and your hard work in these unprecedented times. So, and I'll conclude with the magic trick that I discovered in our hours of Zoom together. So apparently I didn't get the memo. I'm in the alumni house all by myself looking for Frank and Dana, but the magic trick is this. So if you have your background and you cover your camera, you will disappear.
Ah,
so there you go.
Good
Anyway,
Goodbye.
Take care, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We are going to take about a 5-minute break, and then we are going to pivot into our general faculty meeting. So let's take a 5-minute break, and we'll be right back.